So lesson 3 is focusing on the issue of population, because often the debate is about maybe that we've got too many people and we need to have some sort of population control in order to then have an impact on climate change. This lesson also draws in some of the resources from Gapminder and the Factfulness book. So the idea is you start by saying, what's the population of the world? Yeah, it should be an easy question for students to answer. And then you go a bit deeper and you think, well, where actually do those 7 billion, roughly, live? Which continents? So you get them maybe to use an A3 map, and then they can move around these 7 billion people. So each of the icons signifies a billion. It might be that you use jelly babies, or you could use Lego to do the same sort of thing. You can then ask the question, once you've shown them the answer, of where in terms of income they sit. And then you can get students to think, actually, the majority of the people, rich, poor, where do they sit? And again, this is often quite eye-opening for students, because there's a lot of misconceptions, particularly because they feel their lives are often the norm, and they think most people live like them, which often isn't the case. So, the next activity for the lesson is to focus on individual countries, and then thinking about how their carbon emissions compare. So who is it? Is it certain countries that are causing more of the problem than others? So there's a good graphic there looking at the cumulative CO2 emissions, and the idea that actually just because a country might be emitting the most now, it may be that over history, so since the Industrial Revolution, their carbon emissions, like the UK, might be much higher than the actual ranking at the moment. The homework task here is for the students to be prepared for the next lesson, where they'll need to be able to use their own carbon footprint, so thinking about how their annual carbon emissions. And there's quite a good calculator on the WWF website, which is really simplistic, if anything possibly too simplistic, but it gives a good idea, a good baseline in terms of the students' carbon footprint. In terms of the focusing on countries, there's a template here where in pairs you give each student one of these countries, and the idea is they can use the information from this table. So I've chosen here a variety of countries. The reason for these countries is because maybe they might be ones that the students are looking at in other aspects of geography. It may be ones that the school's got connections with. It may be ones that just they're important because they've got quite high carbon emissions or particularly low. There's a whole variety of stats here that I've pulled together. The reason for the gaps is that I've struggled to find that data. It may be that you choose to fill those gaps or to omit some of those. So using this information, students can help fill in this table. It may be that they need to do a little bit more of their own research to be able to help understand what that country's like. But the idea is these students want to build up a picture of why that country has the carbon footprint it does. So what is it? What's the climate like? So is it particularly hot or cold? What's the government's view in terms of climate change? Does the population live a healthy life? Do they rely heavily on cars? Where does it get its energy from? How much from renewables? And then the idea is they pull that together in an overall picture. The purpose of this is that they can then share that information with other students, and it may be that you choose to get them to pair up so that groups match up and kind of date, almost like speed dating, where they then share, this is what my country is like, what's yours? Or it may be that you choose to do this as a class and sort of just go around and look at some of the key players. The last activity of this lesson is all about looking to the future, so how will global population change? And it again incorporates some of the Gapminder and Hans Rosling resources, looking at predictions of population change, and then includes this video about the idea of population filling up, so people, a greater number of older people rather than new young people, and looks to see, well, actually, where will population get to?